We have Cohen legal advisor Lanny Davis, a veteran lawyer, served as special counsel and spokesperson for then President Clinton. He's a former appointee to the U.S. Privacy and Civil Liberties Board. He's provided legal analysis, on many programs, including The Beat. Welcome, Lanny.
Thank you, Harry.
I should mention we invited Cohen back for an interview. You know that. You're here on his behalf, which is newsworthy. I do want to play a brief part of the Avenatti statements last night and some of the rebuttals we also aired in that same program and give you a chance to respond.
To say that Michael Cohen is a problem witness would be an understatement. He's a serial liar. He's shown himself to be incapable of telling the truth. If the prosecution relies predominantly on Michael Cohen, that has the potential to be a disaster. I think they're going to have an absolute field day with Michael Cohen on the stand.
Your response.
Well, first of all, it's a little bit rich that somebody who pled guilty to stealing from clients, including a paraplegic, comes on and speaks about Michael Cohen's credibility, who withstood Donald Trump's lawyers for 2 days of cross-examination, and the judge, direct quote, Michael Cohen told the truth. So anything that Mr. Avenatti says about Michael Cohen is from the absence of knowledge, whatever motives he had. He admitted to having a personal conflict with Michael. I would say that the credibility of Mr. Avenatti compared to Michael Cohen, who testified before 7 congressional committees and withstood that cross-examination and also testified many other times. And this case, which I know something about because I was with Michael through all of the preparation, is backed up by documents and data and witnesses that verify and confirm that Michael Cohen told the truth. And I believe this jury will find the same credibility as Judge Elgaran did.
Yeah, and Mr. Cohen will be a star witness. I think that's fair, yes?
Yes, but not the only witness. I can't tell you too much other than...
I didn't say only, Lanny.
I didn't, but I am saying, to remind everyone, and you're aware of this, that there are multiple witnesses that document that Donald Trump directed Michael Cohen to pay for this money to deprive the American people of the information that might have changed the election.
And that's important, and you're newsworthy because you represent him and he could be up on the stand in a matter of weeks. I want to read from that sentencing memorandum in New York versus Cohen.
Thank you.
It says, orchestrating secret and illegal payments, quote, Cohen deceived the voting public, that's what's on him, by hiding alleged facts that he believed would have had a substantial effect on the election.
Can I just comment and interrupt you, please?
Go ahead.
That's the Southern District of New York prosecutors who found that Donald Trump, quote, directed Cohen to make the payments, not for his benefit. And secondly, they found that the characterization of those payments as legal expenses were false.
Yes, and that's
the federal prosecutor.
And that's powerful.
Who worked for Donald
That's
Trump.
powerful. That's bad for Trump. Does this mean, in your view, that the second crime here is a federal election crime allegedly by Donald Trump?
Well, there's no question that there was a federal election crime. They charged Michael Cohen with the same crime that they said that Donald Trump directed him to do. They didn't charge Donald Trump. But that federal crime is also a New York State crime, which we will see when the district attorney presents his case.
So that's the key second crime.
There are 2 crimes. One is the false booking, which they knew was not legal expense. There was never a legal agreement. It was cover-up for the money that they spent to deprive the American people of the information that Donald Trump had an affair with an adult film star. And by the way, Mr. Avenatti attacking Ms. Daniels last night on your show is also a little rich. This is a guy that stole $300,000 and then he attacks her on television. I don't think that's right.
Yeah, and you get time, and I offered, as you know, Michael time to come on if and when he wants to.
Well, Michael is ready to prepare to testify in this historic crime. And let me remind you that Donald Trump cannot, remind your viewers, cannot pardon himself if these jurors find him guilty. It's New York.
So that's...
And he loves state law and...
So you've responded to Avenatti, but you know, as you prepare, Mr. Cohen, that, like it or not, this is a trial, and there will be other questions and potentially attacks on his credibility in front of this jury. And this is a New York jury, and I don't know what you think, but I would expect the defense counsel to try any which way to get in the fact that Michael used to be a big Trump supporter in front of these people and call into question his arc. I want to play some of that, again, for your courtesy of rebuttal. Take a look at the history here on this sound.
Thank you.
I know Mr. Trump. I've stood by him shoulder to shoulder for the past decade.
Did the president ever provide inflated assets to an insurance company?
Yes.
Do you think we need to review his financial statements and his tax returns in order to compare them?
Yes. I'm obviously very loyal and very dedicated to Mr. Trump. I think he's going to be a great president.
To your knowledge, did the president or his company ever inflate assets or revenues?
Yes.
And was that done with the president's knowledge or direction?
Everything was done with the knowledge and at the direction of Mr. Trump.
The later testimony there damning against Trump. But I mentioned in the introduction what a seasoned lawyer you are. There are people who only want to cover or look at or listen to one side of the case. You never understand a trial without both sides. I think you might agree, tell me if you do, that the other side, the defense, will try to impeach Mr. Cohen's credibility. And if you agree that that's possible, I ask you tonight, what are the responses?
Well, most importantly, we've seen Michael cross-examined by the same kind of questions, and a judge, the only one that has had an adjudication is a judge, found Michael to be truthful. The same kind of questions and attacks will be made in this trial. I can tell you.
You think that will come up?
I have no doubt that not only was Michael truthful, but he owned the lies and the stealing and all the other things that he did for Donald Trump for 10 years. This was not money that he took. He paid this money on behalf of, as the federal prosecutors wrote in a public document, directed by Donald Trump. So whatever cross-examination he undergoes, I have total confidence, based up documents and other witnesses to back him up, that Mr. Trump has a very tough case to get even one juror to agree that he's not guilty.
It's really interesting. Do you think, and I'd ask him if he were here, but you're here in his place, do you think that he is fully prepared, personally, emotionally, psychologically, for how much the Trump lawyers, if he takes the stand, will try to bait him, to upset him, to make him lose his composure?
Yes, for one reason. 5 years ago, when he first called me and we talked about my helping him put him into the public arena in front of a congressional committee under oath, he said, I need to tell the truth for my family, for myself. And since that day, he has told the truth in front of congressional committees. Mr. Mueller praised him telling the truth. And I just said the judge found, after 2 days of very tough cross-examination, I have total confidence the reason that he'll stand up is that he's only going to tell the truth. And when you tell the truth, that's pretty powerful. And the jury will look at him and decide, is he credible? Judge Algaran said, yes, he's credible. Now we'll let a New York juror, 12 people, decide whether he's credible.
Yeah. I have something else I want to talk to you about. Not the why are we here. There's a convicted campaign crime. There is a mountain of evidence against Donald Trump. Proving that Donald Trump might have been less than accurate on his finances is easier now than it was years ago with this mountain of evidence. I think people are familiar. So not why are we here, but why are we here now, which is more a question for the DA than for you. The DA has been on this show, but he's busy right now. And I do want to ask you how you think, as a very knowledgeable attorney in this case, the DA will deal with this. Because here's the timeline. 2016 is when this thing occurred. Your client, the person you're advising, Mr. Cohen, pleads guilty by 2018, right? We don't get the revival of the case until 2022 and the indictment until 23. And now here we are, 2024, April jury selection, could be May starting the trial. I ask you, what is the best rebuttal for the DA when the lawyers say not why are we here, but why are we here now? As they try to, through questions and arguments to this New York jury, say it's a little late to be dealing with something from 7 years ago.
Well, first of all, I wish it had been brought earlier.
You do?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The earlier DA, Mr. Vance, was ready to bring an indictment based upon commercial fraud. Instead, the Attorney General brought a civil case for commercial fraud. This DA decided the more powerful case with implications for the country was this case. Let me quote the federal prosecutors who worked for Donald Trump when they wrote these words on December 7th, 2018, in a public document. They said this case is about preventing the American people from knowing the truth right before an election.
Yeah.
He waited till 3 days before the election.
Yeah, very important.
To tell Michael, pay off Miss Daniels.
But can
and
I push
use your
you?
own money.
You're a smart lawyer, so I know you can handle being pushed with all your experience.
Please.
What do you say in that courtroom when those Trump lawyers say to the jury, if this was such a strong case and a clear case, and Mr. Cohen has been ready, as I think he has, to tell the truth, as you said tonight, for all this time, why did it take this long? If it's such a great case, why didn't they bring it earlier? Here we are barreling towards an election. Here we are 7 years later. Is there a good answer for that?
There's a very good answer. He was an incumbent president, and his own prosecutors called him Individual One, not Donald Trump, directed Michael Cohen to pay the money for his benefit to cover up an affair with
No, but I'm talking, we're 4 years, we're 3.5 years
that
from
was
that.
until 2021.
What about 21? Yeah.
When he reluctantly allowed himself to be succeeded by Joe Biden after a violent insurrection that he promoted. Now it took some time to decide, do we go with the financial fraud case or do we bring this case, which is about preventing the American people from casting their votes? It's not a hush money case about sex. It's about preventing the American people from knowing that Donald Trump had an affair, according to Ms. Daniels, and that he didn't want the American people to know about it after the Access Hollywood tape came out earlier in October. Those are the facts, and it took about a year for them to decide, we're not going to bring the financial fraud case. We're going to bring this case because it's about fair elections, and it's not just about money.
Final question. You mentioned these witnesses. Mr. Cohen will be a key witness if he's called. What other witness or witnesses do you think will most clearly corroborate his testimony?
Well, I'm going to answer your question according to public reports because I was in the room with Michael for almost 2 years while the prosecutors were preparing this case. I can tell you that there is another major crime that Michael was forced to plead guilty to, even though he really had nothing to do with it other than papering it. And that involved the National Enquirer and somebody named David Pecker. This is only public information that I'm describing. David Pecker testified in front of the grand jury that he met, and that's the word federal prosecutors used in their memorandum. Trump met with David Pecker to do a cash and kill scheme where the National Enquirer would pay off anyone coming with bad information about Donald Trump before the election.